The project's officially over budget and behind schedule. We've gone ahead, right after I did all the work of rebuilding my other brake system, I went ahead and bought the big brake kit because I thought, you know what, the car's going to have twice the power, she needs twice the brakes. So what I got here is I bought everything from Sakebomb Garage. So I got the whole Wilwood track day brake kit for the front, and then I also added the rears to it as well. The rears just relocate the standard rear caliper because the problem is they have that parking brake that's all mechanical. It's very odd, and no one else uses a similar system, so there's really no brake kit per se for the rear. So what they do is they just relocate it to get the bigger rotor on there. That way, the bigger the rotor, the more heat that you can disperse through here and the less brake fade that you get. So these are actually a two-piece rotor. You get the main rotor on the outside and then the hub that bolts to the axle on the inside right there. So that's kind of neat. I've never seen one of these in person before. And then just standard Wilwood big brake calipers. And then Ferodo Racing brake pads. I also got a new set of wheels. So these are a 17 by 9.5. The wheels that are on the car are a 17 by 8. So the new ones are an 1.5 inch wider. These are also a BBS type wheel. This wheel is actually factory for an RX7. They came on 01 on the type RZ, which is like a limited edition model. And these wheels were a little bit smaller, so what Sakebomb Garage has done is they took the wheels, they 3D modeled it, they've made them wider. The other improvement that they did, they have what they call a knurl bead around the edge of the wheel. So basically what this is a spline. So you go to put the tire on, it splines itself onto this bead, and that keeps the tires from slipping on the wheel under heavy braking, like that, or high horsepower, like that's gonna be. So technology in this wheel, it's forged, super lightweight. I mean, this wheel is maybe 20 pounds, if that. The nice thing about the wheel is that it's made by Sakebomb Garage, same thing with their brake kit. Yes, this is a Wilwood big brake kit. However, the nice thing about Sakebomb Garage is that they do a lot of research in all their products. So you can go off the shelf and get the Wilwood brake kit. However, there's some issues with it. Like I've read online that the brake lines aren't long enough. The brake bias can get messed up on certain brake kits. So what they do is they figure out, okay, are you going to run the big brake kit in the front? Are you going to run the big rotors in the rear? And then they match the piston size of the calipers to what you're running. That way you can run the OEM brake system, meaning the master cylinder, you know, proportioning valve, all that good stuff. So they do all the research so that way you don't have to mess with it. They even have branded their own steel braided brake lines, which are DOT approved, which is sweet. So when talking to them, you know, because I told them when I was buying the brake kit, I was like, hey, I've got this car. It's going to make, you know, 600 plus at the wheel. I need something that grips because the problem is those tires are a little narrow and those are Pirelli P0 tires, which they're just going to get roasted right off. And what led me to the wheel right here, we're going to put Toyo R888R compound on there, which I think is 100 tread wear, which is definitely pretty racy. But we need something that grips on the car. And one thing that they helped me doing is because I bought the coilovers from them, these Ohlins, you see they've got one big spring on there. The spring's the same on all four. They've actually done a lot of research in spring rates, returns, all that good stuff, and they figured out how to add, see these are new springs for the front, and then we also have smaller helper springs because they just don't make a single spring that works for what we're doing. What these are going to do is, from what I understand, they're going to stiffen up the front end of the car. That way weight transfers to the rear, and it gives it a little more extra grip, because if it was loose on the front, the car kind of does this a little bit, you're going to get some wheel hop and traction issues. So all that, it's really nice to have one-stop shop for rotary specialists. I mean, these guys pretty much, you know, one of the top companies for making aftermarket parts just because of the amount of research that they do in all their products. Like this, for example, this is a methanol tank for running into the intake to keep intake temps cooler when you're running through boost. Most people get a meth tank from like AEM, they just mount it in the trunk. It looks ugly, it's just not the greatest. Sakebomb Garage is actually taken, this is based off a rear windshield wiper tank that some of the models overseas had. US never got them, I don't believe. And they 3D modeled it, and then they used a fluid dynamic simulation in CAD program, and they figured out how to fix slosh issues and starvation. And this thing actually fits inside of the molding of the rear compartment. All you're ever going to see is this little cap right here. So it's just a really nice feature. Their stuff's definitely pricey, but you're getting what you pay for. These components all together are going to help make the car just that much more balanced. I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through this brake kit installation. It's super easy because I've already got my other brakes on installed because we were obviously restoring the car. One thing I did find out, and I've already done it before I took a video, is this dust shield for the original size calipers. You can see down here there's a little bit of a lip that kind of comes out this way. The same thing on the top, the lip stuck out kind of like this, and the problem was that it was hitting the rotor. So what I did was I took some pliers and I bent it up out of the way. The problem is when you're looking here with the rotor going around, it was sticking up over the rotor. It looked really stupid. So I went ahead, cut this off with a grinder, and then went over it with some touch-up paint. And we're going to go ahead and start installing the new setup. The first piece we're going to install is the actual caliper bracket. So what this thing does is it pushes the caliper outwards just about an inch or so. And we've got the bolts right here. We got Loctite on them. It's like a billet piece of aluminum. Super nice, lightweight. Seems to be pretty strong as well. Let's be real, the next step's the most fun step. We're going to go ahead, slap the new brake rotors on. You can tell which way these things go. They have a little arrow on them, like this one says points forward. That means these kind of point forward. You don't want to catch an air from the outside inwards. You want to catch an air from the inside outwards. So go ahead, slap this thing on. Just like so. I'm going to use some lug nuts to keep this thing on while we continue to assemble the caliper. On the Wilwood caliper, there's this tube right here that actually keeps the brake pads in place, but we need to put our brake pads in, so we can go ahead and take this off. One thing that Sakebomb did warn about is, depending on the brake pad manufacturer, they can be kind of different lengths, just a little bit. I've got the Ferodo racing brake pads, which apparently are supposed to be decent for the track and the street. I noticed on the other side, when I went to slide them in, they just didn't kind of go in very easily. And Sakebomb said if they don't go in easy and it feels like you need a hammer, go ahead and just sand the sides of this off right here, which is why I've got a file. So the other side I did sand just a hair because if you need to hit brake pads with a hammer, they're not going to be able to slide back and forth in these very easy. That one seems to be a different story. That one's pretty rough, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to sand this one. And there we have it. Here is the money shot. Caliper is going on. Gone ahead and cleaned off the rotor here, that we're not contaminating the pads with the oil they put on these to keep them from rusting. And just like so, get our bolts on. Just like that, the big brake kit is installed. Here's our rear brake system. I can already tell this is going to be fun. You see this lip right around here? I'm willing to bet that thing is going to just be a miserable pain. We're going to go ahead and see. My plan is, I have to get the car running and driving this winter. I actually go through and rip all this apart. So I'll do like the wheel bearing, stuff like that. But as for right now, everything seems pretty decent. Test out the new disc here. You can already tell that dust shield is too low. So we're gonna have to go ahead. It's too low on both of them. Here's my solution on fixing that issue here. What I'm gonna do is I went ahead and masked off the car. That way we don't get any grime on it. It's going to cut all along this. I tried to bend it back, but the problem is it's wanting to bend the whole bracket just because it's circular. It's the way it goes. It's stamped out this way. So one thing I was concerned about is if I cut this out, we do lose some strength in here. But the bracket's got little divots here and here. I think it should still be strong enough to hold its own. Oh my lord, do these tires look fantastic on here. I gotta admit, I was a little worried when I got the wheels in. You know, without the tires on, they looked a little goofy, but now that everything's all mounted up, I'm ecstatic about these things. It makes my old wheels look cheap in a way. Modern wheels on cars, they come all the way out to the end here, but I think a lip is way more period correct than what I had originally. These are the R888R. So I believe these are a 100 tread wear tire. Very sticky. I mean, if you put your nail into it, it'll imprint it for a while. It'll definitely help hooking up at the track and on the street. One thing that does really annoy me about these tires is that you're going to notice if you ever buy these tires, it says outside on one side of the tire. So one side's the outside, one side's the inside. Problem is, the tire tread is the same. So when you put it on the car, the tires are going to face this way, but on the other side of the car, they're going to face that way, which this way is correct. This way is backwards. So if you're going down the road and you get into rain, the rain's coming in right into the center of the tire. So in theory, one side of the car is going to hydroplane while one side of the car stays planted. The normal R888, the non-R style, they don't have the inside-outside on them, I don't believe. So you can mount them where this would be facing the correct way on both sides of the car. I mean, really, how often am I going to be driving this thing out in the rain? It'll be too sketchy anyways. There's your Mazda update. I'm getting stoked to drive this thing. I am so ready. I just got too many projects going on.